Way to set Canucks Twitter ablaze, Jeff. Those are the words spoken by Elliotte Friedman on yesterday's edition of 32 Thoughts on the Hockey Night in Canada broadcast, and I wanted to talk about this idea too, mostly because I do think there might have been a bit of an oopsie in what Jeff Marek went out there and said on the same broadcast when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks and the significance of the Travis Hamonic trade. So what exactly was it that Marek highlighted about Vancouver in 32 Thoughts? Why do I think there was an oopsie made? And why do I still think this is worth talking about even though there might have been a little bit of an oopsie in the calculations here? Well, Jeff Marek went out there and talked about the Canucks and the Hamonic trade, revisiting what it was the Canucks actually did when they sent Hamonic to the Ottawa Senators for a 2022 third-round pick. Marek made it very clear that the reason this was significant was because not only did the Vancouver Canucks, free up some money, which is what they wanted to do because Patrick Allvin, Rutherford, they need some more cap space, but the third-round pick they acquired happened to be their own third-round pick that was initially sent over to the Vegas Golden Knights in the trade for Nate Schmidt in October of 2020. The Ottawa Senators acquired this same pick in the Evgeny Dadonov trade, and then they traded it away for Travis Hamonic, who ended off the season in Ottawa. Jeff Marek went out there and said on the Hockey Night in Canada broadcast that the Canucks may have intentionally gotten their third-round pick back in the Hamonic trade to prepare for what could possibly be an offer sheet this offseason. Now, I know some of you, upon hearing that, might have just gone in your head, wait a minute, there's a little bit of an oopsie right there. But if you didn't catch it, don't worry, we'll go over as to why there might have been some sort of an error as the video goes on. But Jeff Marek then goes out there and highlights the $4 to $6 million AAV range, which would need a team's first and third round pick. He highlighted specifically that the reason this would be important is because if you're Vancouver and you want to offer sheet somebody that requires your third round pick, whether that's a first and a third or just a third or whatever, you have to send over your own third-round pick. You can't just have a third-round pick in the system. It has to be your own. So Vancouver reacquiring their own third-round pick this year is significant in that it would, in theory, allow them to make that kind of offer sheet, right? We then had a bigger discussion as to who the notable RFAs are. Sap Alien, one of the best NHL players in the gosh darn world and a pretty good friend of mine, went out there and said this: if you're talking about players that fall in the third-round compensation range, so only a third-round pick, not a first and a third, you have some guys like Filip Zadina, Ethan Bear, Capo Caco. These are all guys that might get less than $2.055 million. And he links a list as to who the RFAs are that are indeed expiring this upcoming offseason. You have some pretty good ones: Patrick Laine, Tkachuk, Brock Besser, Kevin Fiala, Dubois, Kubalik. As you go down the list, you start to fill the blanks in your head as to which one of these guys could be potential first and third round compensation picks, so $4 to $6 million players, which ones could be only third round pick compensation territory, so below the $2 million threshold. There are some guys that are making over $2 million right now, so it's kind of unrealistic to expect that they would go out there and get anything less in that range. But of course, you do have the Kakos and the Ducks and the Olofssons, the Stromes, the Miles Woods, the Barrett Haytons, and all that. So we can have a bigger conversation as to these players and how much they should get. There are some guys that are going to get huge pay raises. Of course, Kevin Fiala is one that comes to mind. Andrew Mangiapane is on this list as well. That guy's only making $2.4 million. He had 30 gosh darn goals this year. So, good for him. Ilya Samsonov is a goaltender. He's playing in the Washington Capitals playoff run right now. Mikey Anderson for the Kings is a guy that I like a lot. There are some more players going down the list that you can think about too, like Gabe Vilardi, Sonny Milano, Cody Glass, Filip Zadina. Josh Norris is a really fun one here too. And then there are a few in Edmonton that I like as well. Puljujärvi, Yamamoto, the list goes on and on. However, the reason there is a little bit of an oopsie with what it was that Jeff Marek said was because of timing. Marek was insinuating that the third-round pick that the Canucks got in the Travis Hamonic trade, which was their own third-round pick, would be used to make an offer sheet. However, you actually are not able to make offer sheets on the same July 1st free agency date as you have been before. The reason for this is because the signing period for 2022 starts on July 13th, not July 1st. It's pushed back, I would assume, because of all the delayed games, all the postponed games, etc., the pandemic and everything slowing it all down. So the free agency period wherein you're allowed to sign restricted free agents and unrestricted free agents is July 13th. The NHL Draft, on the other hand, is on July 7th. It'll be July 7th and July 8th with the same format. The 7th will house the first round's draft picks, and then the 8th, the next day, will have the rest of the rounds following. But that means that if the Vancouver Canucks were going to go out there and use their third-round pick in an offer sheet, they actually wouldn't have their third-round pick to give away in compensation during the time they're allowed to make the offer sheets. The offer sheet period opens up about a week after the NHL Draft, wherein their third-round pick this year would actually be used. Now, that's no biggie, because when you make offer sheets for players in the offseason, what you're giving up are the picks for the next year's draft, and the Vancouver Canucks do indeed have their first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth in 2023. But it is just kind of funny how everything falls down with this year's draft being on July 7th, because it opens the door to some misunderstandings like this, where Jeff Marek was like, oh, their third-round pick in 2022 could be used in an offer sheet. Well, unless my understanding is incorrect, I believe that offer sheets with 2022 picks as compensation would have already been accomplished back in the summer of last year, which is why we had Jesperi Kotkaniemi and all that stuff. That's the entire conundrum that I'm thinking about. But either way, long story short, even though there might have been a big oopsie in what it was that Jeff Marek said in terms of the timing and how everything aligns, there still is a very true sentiment here that says that the Vancouver Canucks could maybe think about an offer sheet, because they do have the picks available to them next year should they want to sign any of these restricted free agents to a contract that would garner that kind of compensation. You can let me know in the comments below, what do you think about Jesse Puljujarvi heading over to the Vancouver Canucks? What do you think about a guy like, I don't know, Filip Zadina heading over to the Vancouver Canucks too? The Canucks need defense, right? Ethan Bear from the Carolina Hurricanes is going to be a restricted free agent. There are some other guys here too that I think could be of significant value. Tony DeAngelo maybe? Okay, no, we're not going to do that one. Adam Gaudette is a restricted free agent. So are a few other players like Rasmus Sandin on Toronto. If you're thinking about the range in which the Canucks would have to spend money on to give up different kinds of compensation, the Canucks do have all of their picks spare their 7th for next season, so it will be okay to just offer sheet anybody at any dollar amount. But of course, offer sheets are not really just an, okay, we can offer sheet anybody in the world that we want to kind of thing. You have to make sure the actual player says yes, because that's part of the contract negotiation process. You can send a contract offer out there, you can send an offer sheet out there, but if the player does not accept it, then there is nothing to be found in terms of compensation, in terms of the player, in terms of whatever. So let me know in the comments below all your thoughts about the offer sheet route for the Vancouver Canucks. There are a whole bunch of guys. I'll link the list in the description so you can go ahead and see amongst these names who do you think is valuable enough to go after, while also being cheap enough to not spend a fortune in terms of the compensation. I'm thinking about Kaapo Kakko, obviously second overall pick, 18 points in 43 games this year, wasn't really the best that he could have been. He had some good moments, but he hasn't taken that step that a lot of Rangers fans would have wanted him to. I'm thinking about Filip Zadina as well, because a change of scenery could really do him well. I'm thinking about Ethan Bear, pretty much all the ones that Sap said on Twitter I do like a lot, but then there are some other guys here that are also pretty valuable in my opinion too. Cody Glass is playing in the playoffs for the Predators. You have Owen Tippett, who is a pretty good sniper in the Philadelphia system. Josh Norris, of course, is a stud. He's probably not going to go and sign an offer sheet anywhere. But let me know in the comments all your thoughts about the Canucks and the idea of the offer sheet. I will leave a link in the description as well to the video of Jeff Marek saying the stuff that he did on Hockey Night in Canada. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.